Well, what a beautiful start to our worship service today. And as we begin our time together, I want to first of all say good morning and thank you for having me. And friends, as we gather, we are entering a time of shorter days, more darkness, colder weather, and for many, a time of unrest for a variety of reasons. And for our call to worship this morning, I invite you to think, what for you inspires hope? What is leading you to experience joy? What is bringing you peace? And for what do you feel love? In the Christian tradition, of which I consider my spiritual home, the next 4 weeks, beginning today, and the next 3 weeks, mark the season of Advent. And each week is focused on one of those themes. And I wonder if thinking for a moment about hope, joy, peace, and love might help all of us to connect to our sense of spirituality, our sense of whomever we consider God to be, and our relationship with one another. And as we reflect on that, I invite us to worship together. Will you join me in reading the words for the chalice lighting? We kindle this flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome, bienvenido, to Sunday morning worship at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington. My name is Warren Baker. I'm a member of the Worship Associate Team. My pronouns are he and him. We are happy to welcome Reverend Dr. James D. Ross II as our guest minister today. Reverend James is a justice advocate, pastor, professional coach, writer, and editor, currently serving as Senior Director of Identity Centers and Director of the Interfaith Center at UVM. He is Black, queer, Southern, and holds ordination in the United Church of Christ. Welcome, Reverend James. Since today is the first Sunday of the month, families are gathering for Family Chapel downstairs. You are welcome to stay in the sanctuary, but if you want to be part of the Family Chapel, now is the time to head down there. Whether you are here in the sanctuary or whether you are joining us online, live streaming, we are glad you are here as we join to build community and make meaning in our lives. What guides us is a commitment to each other and to the shared values of love, compassion, equality, service, and justice. This religious society acknowledges that our campus, alongside our homes, our schools, and local places of work, are built on the traditional lands shaped by waters of the Abenaki peoples who live here still. We pause to recognize the enslaved people, primarily of African descent, whose labor and suffering built and grew the economy and infrastructure of a nation that refused to recognize their humanity. We affirm that it is our collective responsibility to engage these histories and to repair harm. We strive to be good stewards of this part of the interdependent web of all existence. May our time here lead to actions that accountably dismantle systems of oppression. If this is your first or second time attending, would you please raise your hand so we may give you a special welcome? Welcome. To help with that, we have three welcome ambassadors today. Doug Watkin, and Susan Warner-Mills. Would you please stand so we can see who you are? There they are. So you can connect with them if you have any questions about anything, and also you can nab any one of us if you don't happen to run into one of them about our church, our congregation, about Unitarian Universalism in general. Do join coffee hour after the service in the community room downstairs. That's through this door. Take the stairs or the elevator down. It's a great time to make new friends, catch up with old friends, and learn more about the many things that are going on here at First UU. I have two announcements. Remember, the Holiday Bazaar will happen this Saturday from December 7th from 9 to 2 in the community room with lunch from 11 to 1 in the parlors. One-stop shopping, one-stop dining. How does that not work? You can get one of these green slips that are by the collection baskets and are scattered throughout the sanctuary. And if you want to sign up to help, there'll be a sign-up sheet in the downstairs in the community room during coffee hour. This is an announcement from the Healthy Congregation team, and it begins with a question. Would you like to explore how you show up in difficult conversations? In its Navigating Difficult Conversations at the Holidays and Beyond workshop, next Sunday, participants will examine our mind and body responses to conflict and learn a few basic communication skills. The goal is to plant seeds to grow confidence and to gain insight into how to stand in the light of your own truth while holding space for another to feel heard and seen. That's next Sunday, the 8th, 11:30 to 1:30 in the parlors. Soup will be served and childcare will be available. Space, however, is limited. So the Healthy Congregation team requests that you pre-register with and ask questions of Nancy Helen. Are you here, Nancy? There she is. The workshop presenter will be Barbara Shaw Dorso, who is coordinator of the Conflict Assistance Program at the Burlington Community Justice Center. Whatever it took for you to be here, you are welcome, just as you are.
Good morning. I am Liam Harton. I am your music director. I want to say a couple words about our hymns today. I try not to talk too much during the services. I try to make it when you hear my voice, I'm usually singing. Most other people are talking, so it's a little break, right? But I did want to say a couple things about the hymns today. The first thing is that it was such a pleasure to prepare Guide My Feet. I was listening on the way in to some of my old friends from the American Spiritual Ensemble. My teacher from college, Dr. Everett McCorvey, directs the National Spiritual Ensemble, and I was listening to Gerald Cunningham sing it on the way in, and also the Morehouse University Choir, and so moving. And so thanks to Reverend James for choosing it, because it's an amazing piece of music. One thing about the spirituals, I'm mostly channeling my old teacher, Dr. McCorvey here, but the spirituals are very, very important. They are the folk songs of the enslaved African-American community, and they passed into the rest of the world's musical community almost immediately via church music. They are both, there's over 2,000 melodies. There are both sacred and secular examples, but the sacred ones were the ones that were more likely to be preserved. So those are mostly the ones we have today. They passed very early on into church music, and their influence is felt in almost every type of American music you could imagine, from Broadway to bluegrass to R&B. They are an essential part of American music, and they deserve the same respect that we give to European classical music or any other great musical tradition that we are participating in. So that's what I want to say about Guide My Feet. And then I also wanted to say real quick about our final hymn this morning. We have altered the words to that a little bit, because Guide My Feet is such a strong metaphor about moving. We changed the words to the last hymn a little bit to make it more inclusive. And so those words will appear up there, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you're familiar with that last hymn, draw the circle wide. It may be slightly different than you remember. Okay? So I invite you to stand in body or in spirit and join us singing number 348, Guide My Feet.
Now we enter our spiritual practices. We enter into a time of listening and reflection. Spiritual practices come in many forms: generosity, spoken meditation, stillness, and music. Through these, we create a space to share and hold our joys, our sorrows, and our gratitudes. Now, each of us may enter the communal practices to which we are drawn. In our generosity practice, we share half of the collection plate with a community partner that is living out our values, while the other half goes to sustain this congregation. Offerings this month will be shared with FUUSB's Socially Responsible Santa program, which provides cash gifts to families and individuals in need. By giving money directly, we hope to empower people to choose the holiday gifts they want to give and to receive. Thank you for whatever generosity you can practice.
Friends, I invite us into a time of what I consider prayer, what you may consider meditation or prayer or reflection or something totally different. And I invite you into whatever posture physically or otherwise that you find appropriate for this time. I invite us into a time of quiet, a time of silence and reflection. As we continue with this time, I'd like to share a poem or reflection or what I consider a prayer by Howard Thurman, who was an African-American author, philosopher, theologian, educator, civil rights leader, and a mentor to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. This piece is called How Good to Center Down. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our minds seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashing, with noisy silences, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting lull. With full intensity, we seek, ere thicket passes, a fresh sense of order in our living, a direction, a strong, sure purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning to our chaos. We look at ourselves in this waiting moment, the kinds of people we are. The questions persist. What are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our days? What is the end of our doings? Where are we trying to go? Where do we put the emphasis, and where are our values focused? For what end do we make our sacrifices? Where is my treasure, and what do I love most in life? What do I hate most in life, and to what am I true? Over and over, the questions beat upon the waiting moment. As we listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note, which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. It moves directly to the core of our being. Our questions are answered, our spirits refreshed, and we move back into the traffic of our daily round with the peace of the eternal in our step. How good it is to center down. Amen, Ashe, may it be so.
Another, excuse me, another of our spiritual practices is the stone ritual. When the music begins, you may come forward on each of the outer aisles to mark a joy, a sorrow, or a gratitude by placing a stone onto the table in front, which will create a representation of our shared lives. If you have a gift to add, you can place it in one of the baskets at the head of either aisle. Return, as always. Oh, you can make your offering online as well. That'll be up on the screen on the wall. Return, as always, to your seats via the middle aisle, using both lanes to keep things flowing. Please join me in the words of our offertory dedication. With gratitude, we give these gifts in service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice.
Well, friends, I just want to take another moment to thank you for your generous welcome today. I want to especially thank Reverend Karen for inviting me today, and I want to thank the staff and the worship team for their tremendous help and generosity. And thank you for being here. As you may know, I have selected for my title today, Becoming More Human. Now, there has been, and there was in the time leading up to the November elections, and there remains today, a great deal of rhetoric about reclaiming the greatness of America. And we could have extensive debates about whether America is great, has been great, can be great, who is great for, and what all would be necessary for it to be great for everyone. But I find myself drawn to a piece that was published in the June 1936 issue of Esquire magazine that has enjoyed a resurgence of late, and with good reason. It was written by the novelist, playwright, fiction writer, and poet Langston Hughes. And if you will indulge me, I will share it with you today. The title is Let America Be America Again. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plains seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any person be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath. But opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man, full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain of profit, power, gain, of grab the land, of grab the gold, of grab the waves of satisfying need, of work the people, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker sold to the machine. I am the Negro servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean, hungry, yet despite the dream. Beaten yet today, oh pioneers. I am the one who never got ahead, the poorest worker bartered through the years. I am the one who dreamt our basic dream, in the old world while still a serf of kings who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring sings. In every brick and stone, in every furrow turned, that's made America the land it's become. Oh, I'm the one who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I am the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lea, and torn from black Africa's strand I came to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who said the free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we've dreamed, for all the songs we've sung, and all the hopes we've held, and all the flags we've hung, the millions who have nothing for our pay, except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has yet been and yet must be, the land where everyone is free, the land that's mine. The poor ones, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. From those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again. America. Oh, yes, say it plain. America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the rack and ruin of our gangsters' death, the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we the people must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain. All the stretch of these great green states, and make America again. I return to this because it reminds me that maybe, just maybe, it isn't quite factual when we claim that people in this country have never been so divided. Now, certainly we face threats that are specific to today. Yet Hughes, born black in 1902 in Joplin, Missouri, and active as a leading poet in New York and beyond in the early 20th century movement, known as the Harlem Renaissance, certainly knew a thing or two about existential threats. Hughes wrote, Let America be America again, in the midst of the Great Depression, the severe economic downturn that lasted from 1929 until 1938. And it was characterized by high unemployment, extreme poverty, decreased industrial production, and massive bank failures. This was a devastating time, and you may have seen photos of people standing in bread lines in cities throughout the country, or you may have seen photos of rural poverty that was also very real, and maybe one or two people even lived through that period. And as horrible as it was overall, it was even harder for Black Americans and other people of color due to the impacts of racism, Jim Crow laws, and the reality that slavery in the U.S. had ended only 70 years before that poem was published. Yet it's also true that not everyone suffered during this period. In fact, a few people became ridiculously wealthy. Among them were the aviation titan William Boeing, whose airline company we may hear a little bit about now and then. And others included Walter Chrysler of the car company that until today bears his last name, and yes, Joseph Kennedy Sr., who made millions in the unregulated stock market, largely due to insider trading and market manipulation. Now, some people would say that these folks simply used American capitalism to their advantage. But I would say that that in itself is a problem. Because isn't there something wrong with a system in which most people have nothing so that a few can have much? And even, friends, as I offer this critique, I know that while most of us are not Boeings, Kennedys, or members of the Chrysler family, many of us do enjoy economic privilege that is a tremendous contrast to the reality of most Americans and certainly most people in the world. Amen, for me. Many of us experience significant privilege because our racial identity has been elevated, valued, and rewarded in ways that is not true for people who hold different identities. Many of us have life experiences that are vastly different and that are encumbered with fewer challenges than others simply because we were born of the, quote, right gender or the right sexual orientation or even of the right nationality. And somehow living in our comforts while others suffer challenges our faith declarations, creates within us spiritual wounds, and feels just a little bit inhumane. It challenges our faith declarations, creates within us spiritual wounds, and feels just a little bit inhumane. So we dig deeper into our faith, and for me as a Christian, there is much in the sacred text and the tradition that makes clear that if I simply accept this, I am part of the problem. And maybe this is true for you too, regardless of how you situate your spirituality or your religious identity. Now, I know this is not new to you, so if this sounds like a repeat, just take it as that. And if it sounds like something you can pass along to someone else, maybe that's a good option too. But my feeling, my understanding, is that if I take care of my own health care needs while accepting that many have inadequate access to health care, perhaps I have become a little bit less human. If I accept that children throughout the country, particularly children in urban and rural communities, often have poor educational access, experiences, and outcomes, while I send my children to excellent quality schools, maybe you could argue that I've become a little bit less human. If I'm okay feeling safe on the street, so I accept that black and brown women, men, and children are still experiencing disproportionate levels of violence from people sworn to serve and protect them, well, friends, perhaps I've become a wee bit less human. And perhaps the problem is that my well-being has made me unwell. Now, should you know someone who falls into this category, or any of these categories, perhaps you can offer them some wisdom from the late Grace Lee Boggs. Boggs was a philosopher. In fact, she had a PhD in philosophy. She was a community organizer, a feminist, a racial justice activist, and an author. She died just a few years ago at 100 years old. Jimmy Boggs, who was Grace Lee Boggs' husband, wrote with her a piece that was published in 1974. And Boggs, republished that piece, updated it for reissue in 2011. The first publishing was after the uprisings of the late 1960s, following the assassinations of numerous black leaders, including but not limited to Malcolm X and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The piece was called Introduction to Evolution and Revolution in the 20th Century. And in the revised piece, the updated piece, Boggs wrote that their goal was to figure out where we were, quote, and where we needed to go in order to transform the United States into the kind of country that every American, regardless of race, class, ethnicity, and national origin, will be proud to call our own. In other words, they wanted America to be America again. What Grace and Jimmy Boggs determined and taught to organizers in Detroit, where they lived, and around the country was this: rebellions are not the same as revolutions. Rebellions, they decided, are important stages in revolutionary development because they represent the massive uprising and protest of the oppressed people. You may think of rebellions as large marches or responses to an event that happened. And as a result, rebellions bring forth reforms and raise questions about the legitimacy and permanence of existing institutions. And that's a good thing. I would suggest that what we saw after the murder of George Floyd was a perfect example of rebellion. Because amid the COVID shutdown, people throughout the country were focused on Floyd's horrific death at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer. And it was an example that shed light on so many similar deaths that may have otherwise gone unnoticed. So people marched and they shouted and made claims, and people did some good things, and people started new programs. Businesses started programs and established new policies. Nonprofits and others made statements and made commitments. But this was a rebellion, so it was short-lived. And now we feel the effects and the fallout of the reversal. Those commitments are no longer present for many people. Many companies have gone back on those promises. And even in our general culture, those who measure these things say that support that was present at that time has significantly declined. But revolutions are different. Boggs writes, unlike rebellions, which are here today and gone tomorrow, revolutions require a patient and protracted process that transforms and empowers us as individuals as we struggle to change the world around us. Going beyond rejections to projections, revolutions advance our continuing evolution as human beings because we are practicing new, more socially responsible and loving relationships to one another and to the earth. Now, this isn't intended as just rhetoric. It isn't just feel good. It has practical applications. Boggs says that it requires us to reject the capitalist values, those same ones that made some people very wealthy while others were begging for bread. Those values and institutions that have created in us great powerlessness. She's saying we can't just focus on the system. We have to get into real relationships with each other. It isn't enough to simply push against institutions. We must become different ourselves. What does that mean, really? Boggs advocates for a vision of a self-governing America based on local self-government, strong families and communities, and decentralized economies. Now, I know there's a way that could be spun to sound like exactly the things you don't want, because it can be manipulated in some ways that are not for the public good. But perhaps there are possibilities there. Now, because Boggs was living and working in Detroit, a large city that has seen significant disinvestment, her specific priorities reflect that reality. So it included recommendations such as committees for crime prevention that would establish and enforce standards of conduct, such as mutual compacts to not buy hot goods, or goods that we know are stolen. Committees to take over abandoned houses for the use of community residents who would maintain them in accordance with standards set by the community. Committees to take over closed plants for the production of necessary goods and services, and for the training and employment of young people in the community. Anti-violence committees to counteract the growing resort to violence within daily relationships. So those are very specific, and maybe they aren't the right ones for us in Burlington. But whether the specifics are right for us or not, the point is the same. There's something to those adages that all politics are local, that we have to think globally and act locally. We cannot rely solely on changes among elected officials and policies and programs. We must care for one another. Now, I know that you are doing that here, and I invite you to share that invitation with others, because sure, it is nice to be nice to people, but this is about far more than that. We must become our siblings' keeper. We must do our work on the ground to change things, whether it is the reality of income inequality in Burlington, increasing homelessness, or something totally different. If we want to change the world, we must transform ourselves. We must become more human beings, Boggs tells us. A few days ago, I ordered a sweatshirt emblazoned with the words, "We're all we've got." And I believe that even as we go back to our homes, our jobs, our solitudes, our comforts, and our communities, that is true. Ultimately, all we have is one another. Now, it would be easy to turn to hopelessness right now. It would be easy to become cynical, and understandable to do so. Lord knows I battle against these as much as anyone. But the reality is that none of this is new. Yes, there are new manifestations, but we have been here before. And I believe this is the time to remember who we are and what we believe. It is time to lean into what we believe and each other. And it is possible, I believe, that when we do so, we will become more human, and that together we can make good on Hugh's declaration and make America, America again.
At this time, we'd like to invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join us singing our closing hymn today, Draw the Circle Wide. This is new to this congregation, and so we have made sure there are plenty of repeats. And so if you do not know the melody yet, feel free to listen and come in when you feel comfortable. And if you already know the song, feel free to start singing with me right from the beginning. Thanks.
Oh,
Please join in the words of the chalice extinguishing in either English or Spanish as you prefer. The fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. Friends, I want to share with you a benediction as we leave this time together. And this is a piece that was written as a verse by the contemporary hymn writer Mary Keithon. She wrote it for a special service that I was a part of when I was serving a church in Washington, D.C. And this is the benediction. We are still a people dreaming. Love alone can drive out hate. Love can counter selfish schemings and put an end to harsh debate. Dream with us and add your voices. Sing of all that love can do. Practice love till earth rejoices. Sing until our dreams come true. Go in peace.